welcome or welcome back to Made by Man and Mal. I'm Amanda and I make stuff. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a crochet artist. I mostly make amigurumi plushie type items that I sell at market events and online. And you guys, I'm stressed. And you might be thinking, Amanda, I thought it was your slow season. Why are you stressed? And I'll tell you why. It's because these yarn stores, these craft stores, they're doing me dirty right now. You may or may not know, but my signature yarn that I use for pretty much all of my plushies, for my market events, for my selling online, I use Sweet Snuggles Lite and Chenille Home Slim from Michaels. Well, recently it was discovered that those two yarns were taken off of the Michaels website. It's pretty difficult to find them in stores as well. This sent me into an absolute panic because during my slow season, I wasn't really stocking up on yarns, but now I'm getting back into market season and I needed to stock up. So I really have no spare inventory of yarn. And I'm not gonna lie, I was panicking. I was like, are they discontinuing this yarn? I know there's been like a lot of talk about it. Apparently, word on the street is Michaels is not discontinuing the yarn. However, they did take it off the sites and they're pulling it from stores because of the quality issues. So they're going to work on the quality issues, which honestly was needed. I mean, those skeins were getting rough, and me and my optimistic little brain, I was like, oh, all right, quality issues. All right, it'll be back in a couple days. Every single day I'm like refreshing the Michaels website and it's not there. Apparently some crocheters did reach out to Michaels and Michaels has notified that it could be 5 to 6 months or more. So realistically, a pretty long time before I see any sweet stuff. You hate to hear that. In addition to the struggles with my Michaels yarn, Joann's is possibly also going out of business. So when I was thinking about yarns to restock with, I didn't know if that was a safe bet either because we don't know the status of Joann's either. The specific plushies and amigurumi that I like to make, I make with like a bulky, super bulky chenille yarn, and honestly, there's just like not a ton of good options out there. So in this video, I thought we could talk about some of the options of replacement yarns for now, forever, I don't know, because I gotta figure something out and I am interested to know in the comments if you guys are scrambling as well. But in this video, we are going to talk about some of our other chenille options for our plushies and the pros and cons of these different kinds of yarns. If I have skeins of these yarns on hand, I will be showing them to you in this video just so you could kind of get a vibe for what they are like. Most of them I have used before and some of them I've heard a little bit about, so I'm really only going to be talking about those yarns that I can actually speak on. I am not a yarn expert, so don't come at me. This is just my personal experience as a crocheter. So the first yarn we are going to be talking about is Bernat Blanket yarn. Bernat Blanket is a number 6 super bulky yarn. It is typically sold in skeins of 300 grams, which is 220 yards. This yarn can be found at Michaels or Joann's. They sometimes have it at Walmart. You can find this yarn at a lot of places. I found that the widest selection is usually at Joann's. They have a ton of colors of this. So I would say some pros to Bernat Blanket is it is a pretty thick yarn. If you could see this here, it is pretty thick. I'll show you like comparisons to other yarns when we get there, but this is probably, out of a lot of the yarns I'm going to talk about, pretty similar in size comparison to Sweet Snuggles Lite. I would say it's actually a little bit bigger. Other pros is that it does not shed like Sweet Snuggles Lite and Chenille Home Slim. It is more of like a sturdy texture, which is nice. I also love that the color line is huge. They have like different kind of combo color skeins. Like the color line for this yarn is great. It's very soft. It's very easy to see stitches with this yarn. I think it is a good yarn for beginners. But now the cons. The cons of this yarn, I don't like working with it. Personally, it like hurts my wrists because of, I don't know if it's the size or like the texture of it, but it's just not as smooth to work with as the Sweet Snuggles Lite. It's like a little harder to maneuver. I don't really know how to word that appropriately, but it's just not my favorite to work with. which sucks because it is so readily available, so many colors, and I wish I did like it more. And I know that there are some people that swear by Bernat blanket, so I don't mean to offend anyone. It is just not my preference personally. Here it is in size comparison to the Sweet Snuggles Lite. This is focusing. So you can see that they're pretty close in size. Just because of like the thickness and sturdiness, I would say that things tend to work up a little bigger with the Bernat, but definitely a good option for amigurumi plushie making for markets. Okay, next we are going to talk about another crowd favorite, and it is Posh. Big Twist Posh yarn. This is a Joann's yarn. So when I thought about restocking my whole yarn stock, this was actually the first thing I thought of because I love working with this yarn. It is a size 5 bulky yarn, so it is a little bit smaller compared to our Bernats and our Sweet Snuggles Lite. I'll show you that comparison in a minute. But it comes in 200 gram skeins, which is 233 yards. They have actually recently expanded their color line with Big Twist, so there's a lot of like amazing colors now, which is awesome. I would say the pros of this yarn is I love working with it. Let me show you an already unraveled skein so I could kind of show you what it looks like. It is like almost like a cross between a blanket yarn and like a smaller chenille yarn, maybe like a dolphin baby or something, or a parfait chunky. We'll talk about those later in the vid. Why isn't this focusing? Focus, not on my face. So yeah, kind of like a blanket yarn texture, but smaller than Bernat, and because it's smaller and like a little bit smoother, it is so much easier to work with, and I love making things with this. It like works up really quickly, doesn't really shed like the Sweet Snuggles Lite chenille. Here it is compared to the Sweet Snuggles Lite, so definitely a little bit smaller. Let me add the Bernat in there. This is the Bernat, the Sweet Snuggles Lite, and the Posh. So you can kind of see that it is similar in texture to the Bernat, but smaller than both of these. As for cons for this yarn, I would just say that it is a little bit small. Things are definitely going to work up a little bit smaller with this yarn as opposed to a Sweet Snuggles Lite or the Bernat, which I don't love. I prefer a bigger yarn, but that's definitely personal preference. If you're okay with that, then I think this is a great yarn. The only other negative I would say about this yarn is Joann's might be closing, so I don't really know if I want to invest all of my faith and money into this yarn if Joann's is just going to close and then I have to switch yarns again. You know, is it worth it to really, really fall in love and then get my heart broken? I don't know. But love is a risk, so maybe. If you are a tried and true Posh lover and you are nervous about the Joann's Posh situation, I have a solution for you. If you haven't heard of Naughty Ball yarn, you should definitely check it out. It is by Kayla's Crafts 97 on Instagram. This yarn is basically a Posh dupe, honestly. The textures are so similar. I feel very confident in saying that these are pretty much interchangeable and you can work with them together and you probably wouldn't even recognize the difference. Kayla has a great color line for this and she's been expanding the color line as well. I love this just as much as Posh. Let me see if I could show you the size comparison. Here is a size comparison of the Posh to this Naughty Ball yarn. They're pretty much exactly the same. I don't really have any cons for Naughty Ball yarn except that it is a little bit smaller than I would love to use, and sometimes it is sold out, so make sure you follow Kayla on social media so you don't miss when she has new drops. Also, if this is too small for you, Kayla also just released a Naughty Ball Deluxe yarn, which is bigger than the original. I have not gotten a chance to use it yet, but I have heard that it is closer in size to a Bernat, maybe even a little bit bigger than a Bernat. Hello, Hunter. Next on our list is Hobby Yarns. Habibi. heavy. I don't actually know how to say it properly. This is a skein of their toucan yarn, but I usually use their honey bunny. I want to say the only difference is the color line, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But this yarn is very similar in size to Parfait Chunky or Posh. It is just more of a plush yarn than Posh, so more similar in texture and feel to a Sweet Snuggles Lite, but a little smaller than that. So here is it. Here it is on its own. This is considered a super bulky yarn, and it is in a skein of 100 grams. Okay, don't mind my dangling skein, but here it is in size comparison to the Posh and our OG Sweet Snuggles Lite. It's not focusing. Oh, because it's focusing on my son. Man, you gotta get it down. Okay, here it is in comparison to our Sweet Snuggles Lite and our Posh. So this is our toucan, and this in the middle is the Posh, and our Sweet Snuggles Lite is on the left. So the toucan is a little fluffier than the Posh, more similar in texture to the Sweet Snuggles Lite, but unfortunately smaller. I will say this is a great quality yarn. Every time I get a skein, it's very fluffy and it just feels very well made. Pros to this yarn is, like I said, very well made. I do love the color options, always very bright and colorful. The cons for me are the fact that it, again, is a little smaller than my regular yarn, and it can take a little bit for shipping, so this isn't something that you could like immediately have at your door the next day, unless you like find it somewhere else online. But if you order from their website, it just takes a little bit of time, but otherwise a great yarn, and I think that this is a great option. Okay, next we have Himalaya Dolphin Baby. You may have heard me mention this in my other videos. I do use this yarn a lot, honestly, because it is very easily accessible. It is considered a number 6 super bulky yarn. This is a skein of 100 grams. Which is 131 yards. And what I mean by easily accessible is I buy this yarn on Amazon. So if I like have a pattern test or something where I just need like a crazy color that I don't have, it is so easy to just like order this on Amazon, and it's, most of the colors would be here like the next day. Not always, not always. Some of them are like sold out and they take a little bit, but man, I'm doing a yarn review. It is pretty much the same in size as like a hobby yarn, but I would say maybe like a little less fluffy. As for cons, I would say that sometimes the skeins like aren't the best quality, but that's only sometimes. Like this is a really good one. And like I said, in a pinch, this is a great yarn to use. Size and texture is pretty much exactly the same as this hobby yarn or like a Parfait Chunky. This boy just really wants to be in these videos today. Which brings us to our next option, and that is Parfait Chunky. Parfait Chunky, I know that some people swear by this yarn. This is all that they will use. I love that for you guys. Parfait Chunky is a size 6 super bulky yarn. This skein is 100 grams and 131 yards. It is very similar in size and texture to our hobby yarn as well as our Dolphin Baby yarn. I would say pros for Premier is that there are a ton of colors that are very easy to order. The texture is pretty much always great, which is nice. Cons, again, a little smaller than my ideal preference and not as readily available as some of our other options because it's pretty hard to find like Parfait in like a store, so pretty much needs to be ordered online. But if you're cool with that, this is a great option. I also wanted to mention a yarn I have not gotten a chance to use yet, and it is the Premier Basics chenille, which I really want to use because it looks like it is a little bit bigger in size than the Parfait Chunky. It does, however, look like it is a little closer in texture to a blanket yarn. So if you use the Premier Basics, please let me know in the comments and let me know what you think about that. Oh, I also wanted to mention the fact that you can still buy skinny chenille from Michaels. They still have that online and in the stores as well. I have never used that yarn, so I can't speak on it. It is personally a little too tiny for me, but the colors look really cute, and every time people make things with it, it looks adorable. So if you're cool with a skinny chenille, definitely check that out. They also have Big Twist Baby Bear at Joann's, which is a little smaller as well. Also, I did consult my crochet friends about this, and they're putting me on to a new yarn that I've never used before, and it is Elise Voluto. Apparently, it is similar in size to Sweet Snuggles Lite, smaller than a Bernat, but kind of a mix in between Bernat and Sweet Snuggles Lite as far as texture goes. It doesn't really have like a sheen to it. I have not used it yet, so I can't speak on it, but please let me know in the comments if you have. Big shouts to my crochet friends for that info. I would recommend heading over to Stacy from Stacy Makes' channel and check out her yarn update video. She features the Elise Voluto there. That is it for the yarns on my list today, but I am so interested to know what other yarns exist out there that I could possibly be using that are close to my beautiful Sweet Snuggles Lite. So please let me know in the comments if you have any other options for me to try or any thoughts on any of these kinds of yarns. I am genuinely restocking my whole yarn collection, so maybe I will do an updated video when I choose a yarn and let you guys know how that process goes. Also, I will have another video coming up soon where I will be reviewing Temu yarns, and I am so excited for that. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it. And thank you guys so much for watching this video if you did, and I will see you guys in the next one.